Hello and welcome to the Leadership Think Tank. And I have a big idea for us this morning. It's how to overcome with good. How to overcome with good. And it is taken from the scripture, Romans chapter 12, verse 21. It says, don't be overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. But how to overcome with good. So in every organization, in every church, in every group, negative behavior spreads fast, oftentimes. And so leaders either get dragged into the negativity or they rise above it and overcome it, responding with constructive, purpose-driven behavior instead. So that's kind of the goal here, the big idea for this Monday morning. And so it's important for us to not allow destructive behavior to dictate our response. I've heard it said, life is 10% what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. So how will you control? How can you handle? How can you overcome constructively? Picture a meeting, a Monday morning meeting with your team, and the pressure is high and someone shoots down an idea with, that's a stupid suggestion, right? That's not a way to handle conflict, right? But their eyes roll and the room gets tense and they're like, whoa, what just happened? What's wrong with Billy over here? You know, and how is our leader going to handle this morning? And then another teammate jumps in to defend, and then the conversation escalates. And by the end of the meeting, there's a possible shouting match, right? So what happens in teams when we leave moments unaddressed? What happens? So moments like this are crossroads, right? They either drag the culture of the company or the church or the organization down, or they become opportunities for leaders to rise up and overcome with good and stop the spiral and redirect the team back to its purpose. It's not to say that things like that won't ever happen. It'd be great if we never had to deal with conflict, but unfortunately, it does happen. And sometimes a person reacts, and it's not even their nature to react in that way, but other things happen to them that morning. Perhaps a terrible drive-in on the way to work that morning, or an argument with a spouse, or financial pressures at home, whatever the case may be, and they're looking for a quick answer. And that one that was posed in that meeting that we talked about a moment ago didn't seem like the fastest track to put money in the pocket, right? So there's two choices in every conflict. You can be overcome by negativity, right? Mm-hmm. So the signs a leader is being overcome is reacting instead of responding. You know, sarcasm, emotional emails, public takedowns, matching the tone in the room, disrespect for disrespect, gossip for gossip, letting the most negative person set the atmosphere instead of the mission. And here's the key line to think about. When I let someone else's worst moment dictate my behavior, I've already lost. I've been overcome. So number 2 is overcome negativity with good, with constructive behavior. So we reframe the moment. We overcome unconstructive things with constructive things. We can do that with doing good at work. We can have a behavior that builds trust, that protects dignity and moves the team closer to its purpose. And leaders who overcome with good interrupt destructive patterns. Hey, doesn't that blow you away sometimes when you spouted off to someone and the other person responded with good, mm-hmm. with a soft tone, and you're like, no, but you're supposed to argue with me. That's what I'm expecting here. I saw a commercial not too long ago of a woman. She walked into a store to return an item, And the lady said, sure, we'll return it for you. She goes, well, can't there be a little bit of banter back and forth? Okay, you wanted some banter. Yeah. No, you can't return that. No, I paid. You're supposed to return this, and going back and forth just for the sake of going through the motions, because that's what we expect. We don't often expect that someone's going to say, sure, how may I help you? What do you need? Yeah, we can take care of that for you. Right? It blows our minds, right? So leaders who overcome with good interrupt destructive patterns and redirect people towards respect, solutions, and shared goals. How about that, right? Here are 3 practical commitments for leaders. Number 1, I will respond and not react. Before speaking, I'll ask, what response will best serve the purpose of the team right now? For instance, let's say you hear a baby cry, and it's kind of distracting, but you still persevere while you're talking. You don't say, could you take that baby out of here? Obviously, if it gets to a certain point, you might address it that way. But then there's other times where you say, how am I going to handle this? I know I need to address the elephant in the room, so to speak, right? So ask yourself, what response will be the best to serve the purpose of the team right now? And then shift from how do I win this moment to how do we win as a team?
Yeah.
How can I shift the moment, not so that I will look good, so that I can come out on top as the hero, but so that the team can have resolution. So one thing that as an idea is to take a breath before answering.
It's true.
I think sometimes when the leader pauses for a moment, it might help to de-escalate the pressure in the room, but at the same time gives that leader an opportunity to collect their thoughts and to take a breath before going into a comment. And if emotions are high, suggest a short break even. You know what? We're going to take a break right here for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and we'll reconvene then. And suggest a short break or a follow-up conversation instead of forcing a decision in the heat of the moment. If emotions are high, nobody acts rational usually when emotions are high. Perhaps you could say, let's pause for a second. Our goal here is X, so how do we get back to that? And if there's not rationale in the room, it's time for a break.
Yeah.
Right? Break this up and move forward. Second idea here is I will confront negativity without humiliating people.
Yeah.
Because again, we want our team to get across the finish line. Now, sometimes there's just a person on the team with stinking thinking, a rotten attitude, and you may have to show them the door. But is there a constructive way to win them? Not pacify, not undermine them. Of course, in this case, not humiliating them. But is there a way to do that? When a leader hears, that's a stupid idea, and calmly intervenes, you know what? I know you didn't mean to call so-and-so stupid or that idea stupid.
Yeah.
You reinstate that line in a more constructive way so we can handle this. I mean, if you disagree with it, that's okay. But there's a way to handle it. I remember in the book, Love and Respect, this is a marriage tip here. The writer of the book was driving home with his wife after a party, and he had acted like a lunatic there, didn't handle himself right. And his wife was rebuking him on the way home. And he stops and says to his wife, honey, you're right, but you're wrong at the top of your voice.
Yeah.
Right? Meaning that, yes, I needed to hear that, but the way you're doing it
Right.
was demeaning and disrespectful. So there's
Yeah.
a way to do it.
Yeah.
You've heard the expression, you can catch more, was it bees with honey or was it
Yeah.
bears with honey? I'm not sure. So by doing something like that, you name the issue. You name the issue without shaming the person, and you protect the person who is attacked from having to defend themselves. You've come to the table to bring resolution. And it signals to the team that respect is non-negotiable.
It's true.
Even with one of my own kids in the early years, I let my kid know that when he got older, that the door locks from the inside. Here
Mm-hmm.
in this house, you will respect your mother. And there came a moment where he didn't. And I said, guess what? You've got to leave. What? Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
didn't do this, or the other. Yes. But I told you if you disrespected your mom, you had to get out.
Mm-hmm.
And so for about 2 weeks, he camped out elsewhere in a safe place, obviously. But after those 2 weeks, he said, can I come back home? I said, yes, you can, but don't disrespect your mother. It never happened again,
It's
right?
good.
Maybe
Mm-hmm.
some people don't like that idea, but there
I've
comes a
had
time where there has to be respect and
had to do
handling
this.
it the right way.
I had to do the same with two of my daughters. They didn't want to go by my rules.
There needs to be a benchmark, I guess we can use the phrase, or this is how we live here. This is what we do. If you're a Christian home, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. This is the benchmark here. This is where we're at. It doesn't mean we don't make mistakes, but this is where we will be. So calling out behavior, not the identity. That comment, underlines collaboration, not you're toxic.
Right.
So I pointed out with my son the action rather than a personal attack on him. Of course, by asking him to leave, they probably took that personal. But thank the Lord, it turned around. And my wife, with tears, should we call him? Should we see how he's doing? I said, nope. Give him a
Bless her
chance
heart. I love her.
to work this out. So let's focus on improving the idea instead of attacking the person, right? And see, even with those in our organization, people make mistakes. We want to welcome them back, providing that they want to be in agreement with the goal that we're trying to establish here, the culture we want to create here in this environment. And number 3, I will build a culture that rewards constructive good, right? There's the 1 Minute Manager, I think it's called, by Ken Blanchard. Fantastic book to address a problem as it arises instead of waiting for the annual review of that person. Don't wait for the annual review where you have a list,
Right.
a mile long. And hopefully you wouldn't anyway, but, address that issue in the moment, but also reward in the moment. Also compliment in the moment. Don't wait for the annual review to say, you know what? I appreciate you as an employee.
Exactly.
My goodness, all year long, they've wondered if you appreciate them. So say something soon, right? Honor, show mutual care, connecting with people, celebrating with people who de-escalate conflict and move the conversation forward, publicly thanking the team member who listened well, who changed their mind. Perhaps in that meeting, one of the employees was able to address the situation in a calm tone and de-escalate the situation. You can say, thank you for that. That was powerful. I think it helped unite our team just now. Thank you for listening well, or changing your mind, or helping two colleagues reconcile. So make it clear that results and how we treat each other both matter. Right? It's so important. So you can practice in a meeting. You can ask, who helped us move forward this week? Right? And name behaviors like listening and peacemaking and collaboration. Who helped us accomplish that this week? And then build into the performance conversations by saying, here's how you contributed to a healthier culture this quarter. This is what you did to help our team. And thank you for that. So that's powerful reinforcement, right? It's powerful encouragement. And that's what we want to do. So as we come in for a close here, think about this. Think of a tense moment at work or in your organization or even in your family. Think about, how was it handled? Did it spiral down or get redirected towards something constructive? Second question, where do you personally tend to match negative behavior, tone for tone, emails for emails, body language, and so forth? Pause really quick. I had a disgruntled person on my team, and I suggested something that I thought was constructive and encouraging. That was certainly the intent, but the first of 13 emails came into my email box telling me what kind of person I was. And all I did was encourage that person. But first email came, I didn't respond. And 12 more followed, and I still didn't respond. And how do you need 12 emails to describe a person's character? It wasn't long after that we actually addressed that issue in person. And I said, we need to work this out. And this person said, don't tell me what I need to do. And I said, you know what? You're right. You can do whatever you want. You're just not going to do it here.
Right.
So, hey, go ahead. You do you, but you're not going to do you here.
Right, exactly.
So it ain't going to happen, as they say. Okay, so let's jump into number 3. What is one concrete way you can overcome with good in a current conflict or strained relationship? How can we find resolution or bridge the gap? Is it something that I could do to repair? Man, I will never forget the man across the street. Man, this should be a story to write about, but called The Man Across the Street.
The man across the street.
There was a man across the street from our church, and he was belligerent. He shouted out racial slurs. We had a multicultural staff working for us, and we needed extra parking, so we park on the street, and he would send complaints and call the police that people were parking in front of his house. So, we went over and painted that portion of the parking block there in front of his house, and instructed all of our people not to park where that color marker was, but he was just always griping. Then he went into the hospital, and our senior pastor and his wife felt impressed to go and pray for him. And first of all, he was blown away that the pastors would even come to see him after the incredible jerk he had been. And he not only allowed them to pray for him, but they were able to lead him to a relationship with Jesus. And I don't know, it was that very next week after he got out of the hospital, he started attending our church and became the poster child for our church. And him and I became pretty good friends during that period of time. And he was willing to do whatever the church or the pastor needed. And it was so powerful. And about a year and a half, maybe 2 years later, he passed away. So imagine had they not gone to extend love to a very unlovable person at that time.
Yeah.
Imagine his soul might have been lost for eternity. The good that he did during the time that he was alive after that moment in the hospital would not have happened. That's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
So who's the neighbor next door?
Yeah.
Who's the person in the pew next to you? Who's the coworker in the next cubicle over that needs encouragement, that needs to be loved? Several years ago, actually before my wife and I were married, we were driving down the road and it was rainy out, and I was complaining about the rain, and my wife, fiance at the time, she said, "Tom, you just need to look beyond the gray."
Yeah.
I thought, wow. By this point, I had already been in an airplane when it was raining, and we flew up. And as soon as we crossed through the clouds, guess what we saw? A beautiful
Sunshine.
blue sky and sunshine. And that epiphany just made an impact on my life. And I saw that not only with the day, but also in the lives of other people. There's a gray exterior often in a person, but inside there's a person that wants to be loved, like that next door neighbor. There's a person that wants to be cared for. There's a person who wants to be noticed. And they just don't know how to act in the moment. And so these are really good things to think about. All right, so in closing, negative behavior is inevitable. Negative culture is optional. So you don't control everyone's actions, but you control the atmosphere you bring into the room. And lastly, leadership is the choice to respond with what is good and constructive, even when others don't. Okay? So there you go. There you have it. That's the teaching for today. Overcome with good, or in the case of the scripture in Romans, overcome evil with good. Thanks for tuning in today.